Welcome, everybody. We have a great program for you today. I don't want to give it away, but Laura is going to be talking about freedom of choices through opportunities. She's got a mnemonic that she's going to share with us. What's your pill? You're probably curious what that is. So am I. Laura Marsala, she's a dear friend of mine. She's a success coach. Oh my goodness, say that 5 times straight. Success coach, specializing in mindset and spirit and business coaching. She's very holistic in her approach. She is effervescent, dynamic, charismatic. She's got so much energy. I totally respect her, and I am absolutely thrilled that she could join us today. Laura, talk to us. Share with us all you can in the next 30 minutes.
Hi, Gail. I love you. Thank you. What a incredible introduction that was. And thank you so much for having me on. Even though I was really looking forward to being at this incredible event in person, I love that you still bulldozed through all the issues and decided to do this all virtually anyway. Outstanding. I love it. So thanks for having me on. But yes, I am a success coach and I have a very wholesome approach with people. So I love getting involved with the family aspects and the business aspects and the health and the finances, everything, because one thing that I really stand firm on is I am not a one or the other kind of woman, and I never have been. I really firmly believe in you can have it all, every bit of it down to the tiniest little drop. So I teach that, and I show that. I actually love leading by example. So even in my workshops, anybody that comes to my workshops, I teach the what's your pill, the purpose, impact, and legacy. And that's fully stepping into your divine purpose, making a massive impact, and creating a legacy that you're proud of. And the cool thing about this, Gail, is most of the time my children are with me at the workshops, and towards the end they always come in, my 3 kiddos with the babysitter, and it's usually when I'm wrapping up the what's your pill, purpose, impact, legacy, to show people, especially women, that you can be a stay-at-home mom, you could be an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and you can really have everything going for you at the same time with balance. And I also teach that for me, in my world, success and balance are in the exact same. You cannot have balance without success, and you can't have success without balance. And a lot of people actually tell us the opposite of that. They say you can't have success and balance. And I say, you're doing it wrong. So for me, I'm a dedicated mother, and I'm also a dedicated coach. I'm a dedicated speaker. I'm all of these things. And of course, myself comes first. And I have to have balance and success in all of these areas. So I teach people how to stop trying to juggle things and actually build a life that works around your top priorities.
Laura, it just sounds so great because I am a mother of 3 too, a 3 also. No, they're not little kiddos like yours. They're 23, 24, and 28. But when they were younger, I was balancing, and I was the executive director of a not-for-profit organization. So I was able to, but I knew what balance was. So tell us your story first before you tell us the how-tos. What background do you have?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll go way back, but I'll make it quick, short and sweet, right? So when I was a little girl, my father just raised me to be incredibly patriotic, really proud of being American. And, I always knew where my family came from, coming over to America, off the boat, and all the hard work that my family had to put into building the life that they all have now. And my brother was 18 when he went into the Air Force, and he was my role model. He's 10 years older than me, and I always looked up to my brother. And just his spirit of serving, being part of a picture bigger than himself. And I was very little when September 11th happened. And I remember sitting on the floor in my living room, watching these burning buildings and people jumping out of their buildings, feeling like no sense of security, no sense of safety, just completely feeling like, what's next? What's happening? What's going on? No feeling of control. And I committed right then and there in that moment that I someday was going to serve my country. I was going to stand up for freedom and security and all those things that I had learned about as a young child. So fast forward, I was 19 years old. I was working 2 jobs, living in my own apartment, um, very independent. And no matter what I did, the Marine Corps would chase me down. And and I mean, like, feeling for the first time in my life a calling. Like, everywhere I went, anything I did, it just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And so I served my country in the United States Marine Corps. And I remember when I got out, feeling like the sense of purpose that I had of serving my country, standing up for my beliefs, and fighting for freedom. What was I going to do in the civilian sector that gave me that sense of purpose? And it took me years to figure it out. But when I realized that that's who I am, I'm called to serve, and now just figuring out how can I serve in a new way. As soon as I figured that part out, that's when I got into the purpose and the impact and the legacy and all of these things. So it definitely was an incredibly challenging journey of coming back into the civilian sector, figuring everything out. And really, honestly, it's about, or it was for me, never giving up. A lot of times I feel like people can't figure out that purpose. They can't figure out their calling. They can't figure out what they want to do. And so they just keep doing what they're doing, and they get stuck in that rut. And so for me, I'm just like I don't take no for an answer kind of gal. Like, I need to figure it out. Me being happy, not content, sad, happy, joyful, excited, making a difference. That's not an option. It's not an option for me. It's a must for me. So chasing that every day, no matter how uncomfortable it was, when we start looking for things and we see success and we see other people living their purpose, it's really uncomfortable. So a lot of times we look away from it, because the more we look at it, the more we realize how unsatisfied we are in our own lives. But being able to, like, grab it, stare at it, open the box, look at it, and be uncomfortable and just continue, like, hey, I know I'm going to figure this out if I continue to search, if I continue to ask the right questions, if I continue to move forward, if I continue to allow myself to be outside of my comfort zone, I'm going to figure that out. So at the time, I got into insurance. I was running my own insurance agency, which I never saw myself doing that, going from being a Marine to doing life insurance and stuff like that. But it was really awesome. And I felt like I was serving people. I was protecting people from the unknown, from the insecurity, from not having control over a situation. And so it's interesting to see how that same scenario kept showing up. And what happened, though, is I was asked to come and share my story to a group in Rochester, New York, and Senator Joe Roebuck was actually there, but they made me the keynote speaker, and I thought that was really odd. I was like, but I've never spoken before in my life. Why is the senator not the keynote speaker? And so I'm like, these people just must be crazy. So, but I go there and I share my story with everybody. And part of the story that I shared at the time was when I was a child, I grew up in a very abusive environment, and I had become depressed and suicidal, and I had actually tried to take my own life with a bottle of pills. And I had shared the story of going down into the depths and then coming out of that, and how I got out of that, and who was around me that helped me through that. And at the end, after sharing my story, all these people got up crying with tears in their eyes, telling me what an impact, what a change, what a difference it made that I shared my story. The feeling in my heart in that moment was just so expansive. And that's the moment I realized, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
This is my purpose.
This is funny. I'm going to get into that.
Sorry.
It's great. I love that part, though, because it's something that everybody gets tangled up in. I was like, this is the new way of how I'm going to serve. Mm-hmm. This is the new thing, because again, coming out of the Marine Corps, how am I going to find that sense of fulfillment? How am I going to find that sense of making a difference and a change and just realizing like that's just who I'm called to be. That's what's in my heart, is serving people. And like I said, just looking back at the other jobs that I had before this, I was always serving people and giving them some sort of tool to help them create freedom or choice and opportunity in their lives, and protecting what's theirs. And that's exactly what I teach people now. But I love that you just mentioned, I found my purpose. Getting into coaching, I'm very big on, I must always have a coach myself, because when I'm coaching people, I can see things that they can't because I'm looking from the outside. So it's important that other people are looking at me from the outside and helping me as well. And so going through all of this, getting into the coaching, I realized that my purpose is nothing outside of myself. And this was really empowering, really liberating, really incredible. And I love teaching it because people come to me all the time, I don't know what my purpose is, and I don't know what to do. And it's really simple. I simplify it for everybody. Your purpose is to be the best version of you. That's it. That's it.
I
So
like that. And I've been using that lately. The best version of you. That's what it's all about.
that's
Yes.
beautiful. Yeah, it's incredible because it takes so much pressure off of people of having to figure it out or find it. Like maybe it's out there somewhere in like the Netherlands, and they need to call it to them. It's really just your purpose in life is constant self-progression. It's constant being the best version of you. It's unconditionally loving yourself in any and every form and growing. It's simple, but it's funny because if you're busy looking for your purpose, you're neglecting you. But when you realize, my purpose is to be the best version of myself, and you actually start doing the work, that's when things start to change for everybody. So that's your purpose. That's the purpose part of it. And then making a massive impact. This is another part that I absolutely
So you're
love.
taking us through PILL, P-I-L-L. Is that how you're spelling it?
You see how I just walked you right into that?
Okay.
I'm right to the point. So it's my Marine Corps mentality, I guess. But so the massive impact. Everybody wants to make a massive impact. Everybody, and the reason why is because everybody wants to feel connected. So if we feel like we had something to do with something, it's not an ego trap. A lot of times people say that's an ego trap, but reality, it's the basic human need that we all need to feel connected. And if we're not involved in something, then we're not connected. And so it's actually not a negative thing to want to make a massive impact. And a lot of times, I've gotten into the spiritual coaching because I love combining neuroscience and metaphysics. It's incredibly powerful for me. It works incredible for me and all my students and my clients. But when I got into like the spiritual realm of coaching, a lot of people have this negative talk about the ego, basically even saying, you shouldn't feel good or bad if you have any kind of hand in something and getting a result from that. But in reality, that's something that drives us. I kind of explain the ego as, if you have that overbearing mother and she loves you and she cares about you, and maybe somebody says something to you and it would hurt you or it's disrespectful, and that overbearing mother just kind of boom, without even being asked, she's just like, there to protect you, and you're like, Mom, thanks, I appreciate that, but can you just shut up, be quiet, and sit down? And that's exactly what the ego does. Your biological, your reaction inside to something actually triggers and tells your ego to step in. And that's a whole session in itself. So I'm not going to go too much deeper into that. But making a massive impact, people say, oh, you shouldn't, want to do that because ego. But actually, it's how we connect with the world around us. And this is a simple part. So your purpose is being the best version of yourself. Really pouring yourself into what it is that you love to do, and then sharing that with others is making a massive impact. When you just share, and that's literally all I do. I read, I write, I meditate, I homeschool my kids, I do business stuff, I just kind of do whatever it is that I want. Literally, me making the massive impact. And by the way, I've touched tens of thousands of people all over the world. I have a Mind Thrive community on Facebook with people from over 22 different countries that I had gotten in just 5 months from starting it, literally just from sharing my perspectives on things. Literally just from, that's literally all I do when I coach people. I'm just sharing what it is that I do in my own life with other people. And this adds value to other people's lives. That's what making a massive impact is. We want to make a dent. So you just ask yourself, what is it that I stand for? And like I mentioned earlier about the clues in my own life of serving my country as a Marine, and then serving people, protecting them with life insurance, and then serving people in a way now, freedom, opportunity, choice. I mean, it's there. So you can actually look back and say, where are the clues? There's sometimes you got to unbury it and dig it out, but they're typically there. So exactly what is the massive impact that I'm going to make really is tied into what is it that you stand for? What is it that you believe in? What is it that you want for yourself? And the massive impact is sharing that with other people, because a lot of people want to do what I do and they ask me, how do you do it? So it's really just figuring it out, and then moving into creating a legacy that you're proud of. I love this part because, again, when I was talking about the ego thing, people are like, oh, a legacy is outside of yourself. And it is in the sense that people typically talk about it in, but what if we thought about legacy differently, right? So legacy typically is like, I want to leave something behind, you know, and when we spend our time building a legacy, you know, we pour so much of ourselves into it. We love it, we admire it, we cherish it, and we want to leave it behind for other people that are going to love it and cherish it and admire it, just like we do. But we leave ourselves to, well, what if you spend your whole life building the business that your kids don't want to take over? Like they literally don't even care about it. And then what's the legacy then? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just share my personal story with the legacy thing, creating a legacy that I'm proud of. And so I tell everybody that my legacy is actually my children. Boom, I've already done something, created something that is left behind when I go. And so as I pour myself into my children, again, giving them the freedom, the choice, the opportunities to be anything and anybody that they want to be, giving them the tools of that, that's my legacy. That's incredible. And I'm very proud of it. And I'm only proud of it because I've worked so hard and so diligently and consistently to be the best mom, the best version of myself as a mother that I can be for my children, and allowing them to just be flexible and grow in whatever form that they're going to grow in. So it's interesting because I've already figured out my purpose. I've already figured out my massive impact, and I've already figured out my legacy, and I just go about living it. And so instead
So
of
that's the second L, legacy and living.
well, it's just purpose. It's actually just PIL, purpose, impact, legacy.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So you would fail spelling basically.
I would, and actually I was terrible in school. Yeah. That's another thing too. My parents divorced 2 months before I graduated high school, and I wound up moving from New York to West Virginia 2 months before I was supposed to graduate. And so I was half a credit shy for the West Virginia requirements to graduate high school. And I was so eager to get the heck out of there as soon as I could. I flew back to New York. My boss at Wegmans actually held my position for me, which I had to talk him into, because they only did that for college students that were away for school. And, you know, that's how I got into working the 2 jobs in the apartment. But yeah, it was, it's an interesting story. But, I didn't even graduate. I have no high school diploma. I have no GED. And so it was interesting. I had my own insurance agency where they said you have to have a bachelor's degree to get into it, and you have to have a GED or a high school diploma to get into the Marine Corps, and like all these things that people say, well, I can't do this because I don't have this, and I can't do this because I don't have that. I love those conversations because I love to say, well, how come that's not my truth, but it's
Help me
yours?
understand that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not my truth. Yes.
Thinking that, you know, if I don't believe that and that's not my truth, then tell me what makes that true for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start to realize, oh, wow, I'm just literally putting roadblocks in front of myself. Like it's all made up. Like it's literally all made up. When you get to the other side of, you know, taking radical responsibility for, and I mean everything in your life, stop procrastinating, stop complaining, start taking control of your mind. You get to look back and you get to go, that's interesting. I really was the only thing in my way.
Mm. Laura, I love where this is going. And one of the missions of Endless Mountains Empowerment is to educate, empower, inspire women and men in self-development and self-improvement, personal development, and professional development. So this is really personal development 101, that you're becoming the best version of yourself by figuring out what your purpose is, by making an impact, figuring out what that impact is, by creating a legacy, and then just living it out. So that's I need to have that second L there with Pill, living it out. So what would you say to someone who's really never thought about becoming the best version of themselves? How would you deal with someone who has no clue?
And honestly, Gil, that's like 90% of the people I talk with. That's why they come to me, because they're like, oh my God, I want that. How do I figure it out? And they're chasing after that purpose, that impact, that legacy outside. And it's interesting because I'm going to give an example of when I first got into insurance. I didn't know this, but I'm a naturally incredible saleswoman. Like I was telling everybody when I started doing door-to-door sales with a communications company before I got into insurance. And then I got into insurance and I was, creating numbers that people were saying you couldn't do. And it was really important for me to, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean that I sit there and tell myself I'm good at it or I'm great at it. If I'm good at this, let me get better. If I'm great at something, let me get excellent. If I'm excellent at something, let me get genius in it. And I was listening to Jim Rohn in the morning, getting ready, and he said, if you want to get better at anything, and he specifically said sales too, stop trying to get better at sales, stop trying to get better at whatever you're trying to get better at, and just work on you. And I said, well, I'm so good at sales now anyway, that I'm sure that if I stop trying to get better at sales and this thing doesn't work out, I can just go back to studying sales more and it won't hurt me any. And so I tried that. I said, okay, I'm literally just going to focus on myself, creating more inner peace, creating more inner fulfillment, you really getting to know me, unconditionally loving those little corners that we try to like not look at. And a magical thing happened of this miracle called momentum and effortlessness. I mean, just effortlessness. It's one of those things where you can't explain it. And I remember getting asked, Laura, how are you doing this? And, I couldn't say, oh, I meditated on it, because that would probably sound weird, But really, it was just, I just kind of let go of the handles and let go of the control and allowed a flow to happen. And this is actually the part that bridged me into spiritual coaching, is when I started realizing, ooh, there's something juicy here, and figuring out why does it work? How does it work? And how do I show other people how to do it? So really, for people that feel like they have no clue about what am I doing, a lot of times when we're chasing things and we're trying to figure things out, we're really just overcomplicating it. If you let go of the handles, you let go of the control, you say, okay, you know what? It's not my job to figure out all these external factors. I just got to figure out this piece, get yourself into alignment, and then everything will flow. It is a practice. You do need to learn how to do that, which is why I have my coaching packages to teach people how to do this. But really, honestly, the biggest thing is dive in deep, figure out what is it that I want. Shut everything off for a while. Stop watching the news, stop watching social media, stop looking and talking to everybody else that's doing everything else. Get really quiet, figure out what is it that I want. And right there, that's where the birth happens of fully stepping into your purpose, because now you're going to know what it is.
And Laura, this is a perfect time. I don't want to thank God for COVID-19, but really it is the perfect time for us women, especially, to work on becoming a better version of ourselves, to work on personal and professional development, to really be reflective as to how can I skill up so that when this is over with, when the quarantines are over with, when the world opens up again, we're going to be needed, and we're going to have better skill sets and a greater purpose, and we can make a better impact. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers today? Any takeaways you'd like to give them?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on what you just said too, because when this happened, I was like, wow, think about all those people that are really desperate to get out of the rat race. They just want things to slow down. And there's a lot of people talking about, oh, they can't wait till everything opens up and their kids get back out of the house and stuff like that. But, if you've built a life that you actually want to enjoy, like maybe you want to spend more time home with your spouse or your dog or your kids or whatever. I'm like, wow, the whole world right now just gets to stop and take a big deep
Mm.
breath together. And that's so beautiful. And right now, the world is contracting. And, for me and for several other people, they're expanding. And so if you look at just how this has happened in the past, where the world is contracted and then, there's millionaires born out of things like this. It's because they expanded. It's because they weren't focused on the fear and the lack and the scarcity. They were focused on the abundance and the prosperity and the opportunity and the choice. So the takeaway that I want to give everybody that's watching this is, during this moment, this is the perfect time, just like you said, Gail, to actually reevaluate. Think about, am I really eager and anxious to get back to doing what I was doing? And if not, how come? Why not? And what is it that I really do want to be doing? And how can I do that? When I left my insurance agency and decided to do this, I called my dad and I was like, hey, am I crazy? Leaving all my, my financial security and success for such an unknown thing. And I asked a bunch of my friends too, and everybody was like, no, do it. But a lot of people asked me, like, aren't you scared? Aren't you nervous? Like, and they were probably thinking, aren't you crazy? But for me, it's like, when is the time going to come that I'm actually going to do something different? We can sit around and talk all day about how we want things to be different and we want things to change, but you're the only person that can actually create that change. Just take the responsibility for everything in your life and say, okay, if I'm responsible, then that also means I have control. And when I have control of something, I now give myself options, opportunities to choose. I have the freedom of choice. I have the freedom to choose what I'm going to do, no matter what. So cut the excuses, figure out what it is that you want, be brave enough to just do it. I mean, the net's going to be there, the parachute's going to be there, something's going to be there, right? And if it's not, you figure it out. So trust yourself enough, and instead of focusing on what can't work, focus on what could work, and actually talk to yourself that way. Actually feel like, wow, I'm so excited. I actually teach this thing, how to turn, it's like anxiety reappraisal. So taking anxiety and turning it into productivity. If you're feeling anxious about something, get up and do something about it instead of trying to like go against the grain and calm yourself down, because your mind's not really going to take that very well if it's, super, aroused and you're trying to get it to like calm down. Give it something to do. Do something crazy. Do something, unusual. Do something that you typically wouldn't do. And I think playing it safe is like really the fastest way to like rot your dreams, rot your potential. And just ask yourself, in 50 years, where do I want to be? And how did I get there? I didn't get there by doing the same thing I'm doing today if I'm not happy about it. So that's just something that everybody can practice right now. And whatever it is that you've been thinking about and dreaming about, just do it. Just say that. I just got off the phone with the client before getting on this. I've been working with her for months, and we laid a lot of foundation work and groundwork, and she just made $1,000 this week from her farm stand in a little town, Andover, during an entire world crisis. She's just made more money in a week than ever. And it was, even though she was scared, and even though sometimes she's definitely felt like giving up, she didn't. So that's just an example of, look what happens when you take a risk, because the whole world is telling everybody to contract right now and to hunker down and not do anything. And she's expanding. And I mean, that's a really good example.
Laura, I really love our conversation, and you have so many great points that you're stressing. I could spend all day with you. I could spend the rest of the night with you just finding out more that's on your mind. So thank you so much. I know that the women that are going to watch this, and men too, are going to come away inspired. They're going to see a greater purpose for them. And each one of us has something special out there. And a phrase that comes to mind is a job shouldn't be something you just go to 9 to 5. A job should be something you love. A job is really your calling, your purpose. And if someone's not happy in their job, well, it's time to relook at who you really are. So thank you
That's
so
beautiful.
much. Thank you for
Thank
joining us.
you.
And I would love to do this again in the future. I'm just going to stop the recording here.